Good morning, everyone. Uh, why so much of silence? इतना सन्नाटा क्यों भाई? Any which ways. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mukesh Jain, and I have my panelists here. They've already been introduced. Wouldn't take much of your time. But this particular panel, as we have curated, is on use of AI in marketing, exploring new frontiers, new, extraordinarily new. Every day something or the else is coming up. AI is changing a lot many things. It is impacting in many different ways. Some are positive, some are not so very positive. But this is what we will dwell and discuss, right? So without further ado, I would like to, get to the first track of this particular panel discussion, which is basically on the brand communication through AI applications, right? And we have seen over at least last 2-3 years, a lot many new platforms and tools that were made available to us. So let me start this with the first question on how has AI changed the way brands develop and execute their advertising and brand communication strategies? What are some of the most innovative applications or changes that you have seen recently? And may I go with this question to you, Jaydeep?
Sure. Thanks for the question. Great question. And morning, folks. I'm sure we all can say morning a little loudly because when he said nobody kind of gave back. So good morning, everybody. Awesome. There you go, by the way. All right. Let me take a step back and to what the first gentleman who came on stage mentioned about AI, right? That a year back or 2 years back, everybody thought that AI is wow. But right now, AI is there. So AI is now. That transition has already happened. Everywhere you are utilizing AI, at least from a marketing standpoint, organizations across industries are utilizing AI, not just in marketing, but other departments, functions as well. As marketer, I also want to make one more point very clear. We as marketers are not competing with AI, but we definitely are competing with marketers who are using AI. And that is a big differentiation because those who do not probably start utilizing or augment their efforts using AI will definitely see it challenging in the coming years from now on for sure. Now, when we look at marketing and how does really marketing get help from AI, and obviously solutions like AI, today we're talking about Gen AI, that's the new buzzword, but it's a component of AI in a larger wheel itself. There are 3 or 4 things that can happen. Number one, from a brand standpoint as well, it helps us understand our audiences much better. We are able to figure out who is able to do what, who likes what. In the last presentation as well, like Netflix, for example, knows exactly what kind of things you like as an individual. So AI is enabling you folks, or brands in general, to figure out what audiences like, and then obviously tailor-make their messaging. So second point, the content, the messaging, the narratives are built specific to the individuals or cohorts of individuals. The third component is obviously networking or interacting with the customers. So it enables your customer interactions to become very easy. For example, chatbots. Now I know that chatbots were there for a while, but implementation of AI in chatbots makes it even easier. And final point is that while you do all these things, it's extremely critical to figure out, with the help of AI, analysis of what has happened, right? You're spending dollars in reaching out to customers and getting new customers on board. Am I really spending my dollars on the right campaigns, right programs? Is my brand really getting that uplift that it wanted to have in the first place? AI can help you with that component as well.
Thanks,
Sorry for the long answer, but that's what it does.
Right.
So, I would just like to add to what Jaydeep has said. So see, as a marketeer, every day we are being faced with so many challenges to meet certain business outcome. So certainly we have so many ways to invest our dollars and get ROI from some or other activities. We can go traditional, plan ATL, BTL, we can come to digital. Now the entire world is moving towards digital, and that's where we are having this discussion of, you know, how AI in a better manner can help us reaching to end consumer. The more and more we know about the consumer, the better we can serve them. So it is about how best we can serve. Now, with respect to strategies, A, it could be related to planning, B, it could be related to execution, or it could be, you know, related to consumers' interest. Now, the innovation which you asked, one recent innovation which amazed me was from Hollywood itself. Subhranshu has just now named that, you know, Hollywood had gone on a 90 days long strike against AI's, you know, implementation in the movies. Now, right before that, why that moment came, there was a very famous AI video about Hollywood celebrities, where in the same video, they were, you know, hanging out with their younger self. So, actors like Brad Pitt, he was hanging with his, you know, the childhood kind of image. So, it looks like, you know, both are in the same screen, like Mel Gibson for that matter. He was hanging with the younger self and still was able to deliver some dialogues. Now, if that kind of realities we are talking about, there are endless possibilities. And I'm telling you in some science fiction manner, let's say some of us, and at certain point everybody does, we lose our loved ones, right? Can AI give them back to us in some form? For an example, I lost my grandfather, and that was unsurmountable, unbearable loss for me as a young kid. Had there been AI back then, maybe it could have learned more about my grandfather, the way he speaks, the way he looks, the kind of, you know, insights or ideology he has, the kind of guidance he gives to younger kids. But tomorrow in distant future, maybe very near future, we don't know. Those kind of solutions can exist. So even though we are digressing somewhat from the point, but when it comes to innovation, as a marketeer, you have so many avenues. Having these kind of innovations in play, you bring innovative solution for the brand. I represent a brand which is B2B oriented. So even after having 8,000 crore plus worth turnover, most of the people in the room would not know us. How many of you, please raise hand frankly, would know that KEI is a wire and cable manufacturer? Very handful. Which means even after having that kind of turnover, we are not reaching to you know, consumers in a rightful manner. Now, what can be some of the solutions which can build with the help of AI? And I'll quote a recent example which we have implemented. So we partnered with Team RCB, where we cherry-picked 3 players, Virat Kohli, Dinesh Karthik, and Mohammad Siraj. And we developed 3 type of AI content with them. One content was related to publicizing the retail outlets. So if you are in certain pockets, if you are searching about our content, right, the dealer and distributor community, they can publicize their own retail outlet. So Virat Kohli will speak that if you have a need of wire and cable, go to XYZ store. They can generate that content and share, you know, in their own manner with their own connected audience, maybe through WhatsApp, maybe through social media, etc. From a brand side, we were also targeting dealers, distributors, and the community which represent us, electrician, etc. On their birthdays and on their anniversaries, we were curating AI-related content, where these celebrities were wishing them with their own names. Back in old days, if you had to do something like this, you had to shoot, and obviously the celebrities will not give you that much time to shoot. So now AI is really helping out in practical manner. That's all I have to say about it.
Very impressive, Govind. I think great use and good, useful use case that takes you to the outcome at the end of the day, right? And that brings me to my next question, and that is, you know, personalization. Personalization is key in marketing, and you have already kind of shared one use case. But let me come to you, Monil. What's the role that AI or, you know, data and insights generated or delivered through AI to consumers play in personalization today?
Yeah, thanks, Mukesh. So I think a lot of it has already been covered by Shubhendra. Netflix is the best one-to-one marketing case today we have in the consumer space. And as he covered it just now, the KEI industry is a very good example of personalization. I'm not sure if I have too much of points to say or exemplify it. But where I come from, I head up a KPO. We are into an accounting outsourcing firm. So in the B2B context, one-to-one personalization plays a lot of role, right? And I'll specifically mention B2B because that's where we've been using AI, not extensively, but wherever we are using it, it's reaping benefits for us. So for example, we have built personas that used to take months earlier, can be done in literally hours today, right? So if you take an example, let's take an example of a accountant, right? What's his or her day-to-day job looks like. And then we build personas on how do you target this specific accountant, how do you target a specific CFO, and the director of finance. And then once we build these personas, we understand their pain areas very deeply. We go through, scout through LinkedIn, scout through Apollo, scout through different sources and come up with a persona. And then we create, customize, and curate content for them. This content is then built on the website, on different channels and distributed extensively so that that engagement and reach is amplified in a similar setting for different industries and different accounts. So what happens is we get higher engagements and in turn we get higher response rate and hence eventually builds our business pipeline. So this is something, I don't say a hyper-personalization case, but a very specific AI-used ABM case that we have built in the B2B industry. And that is where personalization plays a lot of important role. Now when it comes to B2C, see, end of the day, I think it's human to human as we all understand it, right? But that's still, I believe there's a lot of use cases in the B2B rather than B2C. Sometimes Netflix throws you examples which are like, hey, why this? And now they are discouraging shared users. And you might see certain cases where you say, this is not something that I wish to see. It doesn't happen in B2B. In B2B, it's highly targeted, it's hyper-personalized. If you do it correctly, if you build the right person, if you build the right type of content. Because the pain area that you're trying to address is very specific to that particular role, function, and the department. In a B2C context, I believe there are a lot of use cases in personalization. Manisha could possibly say a lot more than me in terms of B2C, but Netflix is something that I've kind of experienced myself. It's brilliant. I binge watch usually on Sundays, 2 or 3 movies at a time, right? And 95% of the times, my genre is targeted very correctly and very precisely.
Okay.
To that extent that I've exhausted my genres, I have to add genres on Netflix now. So that's the level of personalization I'm speaking about.
Thank you, Monil. And that brings me to you, Manisha, right? And with your background in advertising, I think the discussion is naturally moving towards you. Like, what are the innovative AI techniques that brands are using for audience targeting and segmentation today, which is enabled by artificial intelligence? And how are some of these methods enhance the effectiveness of advertising today?
Yeah, so I'm actually neither an advertising person nor a tech person, but yeah, but I think we are seeing some of that, in the market. I think, again, all of us as users experience the other side of it, right? I mean, whether it's, anything that you look at, whether it's, you book an airline ticket, the fact that it'll get integrated with your WhatsApp systems and you get a personal kind of, message, which is extremely convenient. You look at things like Digi Yatra, which have made our lives very, very convenient, obviously based on, ability to recognize our faces, connect that with our Aadhaar cards and, connect that with the flight time that we are going to. So, in some way, almost everything, there is also an expectation of the customer that it will be customized. And in fact, if it doesn't happen, it seems odd in today's day and age. So it's also a new consumer expectation that everything that comes to me is for me. And I think, again, that's the way we are now consuming our world, right? I mean, our world, as Subhranshu said, is pretty much governed by the news feeds that we get. I think the challenge, and maybe I'll put on my regulatory hat, on this is that, therefore who controls the narrative and how much of that is deliberately controlled by the consumer. So it is, in a sense, comes from consumer inputs. If you watch something, then likely that you will be served that more, or, so your preferences are being recorded. But the thing is that you will therefore not have active control perhaps at all times. And one has to also question what the boundaries of that are. So for example, I mean, and it's not true only of the online world. I mean, I question this even in the offline world. If I go to a building and invariably they will ask me, you have to fill in a register with your phone number, and nowadays they will take a picture of you. And I wonder how long they're going to store that. I have absolutely no idea. What else is it going to be used for? So I think the personalization is extremely welcome from a consumer point of view, and we all enjoy the benefits of it because it offers a much more frictionless experience of the world. I don't, every time I log on, I don't want to be entering my password and my email IDs again. So there is a great value that that personalization offers to me. I think the question always will be, and it's a constant balancing act in terms of how much of that power do you give back to the consumer. Also importantly, are we aware of the cost of that personalization, and how much are we willing to kind of trade the benefits of personalization, which are immense and very delightful, but vis-a-vis some of the trickier guardrails that we may need to build around some things like that. But I think again, it's finally technology which will also resolve that situation for us, right? I mean, I'm a firm believer of that as well. So, whether it's privacy enhancing technologies, whether it is, where the design of your product and service balances both the need for personalization, but also kind of balances the need for privacy and other concerns that are coming out of personalization technologies.
Okay, let me request you to keep on wearing your regulatory hat, right? And we have heard, since morning, we have heard 2 or 3 things. One is, Hollywood going on strike for 90 days, and then a very good example of AI-driven video creativity in the case of KAI's campaign using those 3 IPL players, right? So the question that I wanted to ask you was, there is this thing called deep fake, right? Technology. And it could help, from a marketer's point of view, it could help a marketer, grow its brand and, achieve some of the outcomes. But it also poses a lot of potential legal and ethical challenges in front of us. So being a regulator, how far one could use deep fake and for what kind of use cases, and what is something that should not be done. As a regulator, what's your recommendation on that?
Yeah, so I think it's again per se not the technology which is the challenge or a problem.
Yeah.
Finally it is about how you're using it, and those I think principles remain the same whether you use the traditional ways of making a picture or a video using either regular shooting, or whether you draw it by hand or animation, or whether you use deep fakes, right? The thing is, do you have consent to use that person's image or that video? And I mean, in some way, the same technology that is making what we call deep fakes can be extremely useful, right? I mean, as he said, it is similar technology that they are using with the permission of the celebrity for a particular use case, which is to personalize their birthday messages for their dealers. I mean, the technology is the same. But of course, if you do it and you do not put it into Virat Kohli's contract that, we are going to kind of be using your images also for this purpose, then that is what is the problem. So in fact, the technology, I think, can open up both for the celebrity and for marketeers a boundless set of opportunities where, I mean, today the celebrity doesn't have to be physically present. So imagine the number of endorsements that they could potentially rake in. And even for organizations, it's then a much cheaper way. And even then it becomes a possibility for them to do the kind of things they're doing. So to me, again, the issue is not really the technology, but the principles of using it, which is, are you using it with permission? Are you using it for the purpose that it was originally kind of sanctioned to be used? Are you doing it even with that person's knowledge? I mean, we've seen hundreds of videos that come to us, you know, where you have Ratan Tata and Mukesh Ambani and now Anant Ambani talking of some investment products. I mean, you know, so again, I think the danger of this is that the technology is so simple. I mean, there are apps that you can download, and I remember even about maybe a couple of years ago, you know, there was an app where, you know, they would take your picture and then, you know, make you sing a song and move your head a little bit. I mean, it was reasonably realistic. I mean, and that was an app, a free app that you could download. So, I mean, just imagine the sophistication of software. So again, for me, it is the principles of what is right, you know, in general will also apply to what is right or not right using technology. It's just that the technology makes it easier for people to use it and to misuse it. And for regulators, there's the sheer quantum of this kind of stuff floating around makes it difficult to regulate.
So we need to follow the traditional moral codes
Yeah,
while
I think
taking
those are
decisions.
media agnostic, those are technology agnostic.
Are you aware of anything new written as a directive or at least a acceptable, industry accepted norm for you while using these kind of technologies?
So, I mean, for example, I mean, if I talk of the ASCII code, I mean, one of the things which is our code and which is a 40-year-old code says that you cannot use, you know, in your advertising, and, you know, that's our domain, an image or likeness of a person, you know, without their consent. So, again, according to me, again, this is something which we used, in fact, very recently on a deepfake case where Sundar Pichai was morphed into an advertisement, you know, used in an advertisement. So even, you know, so no one's safe basically. But the same principles applied, and we use the same, you know, regulation that had been built decades ago to actually adjudicate that case, and it was enough. We've done some work recently on dark patterns, which is, again, not directly linked to AI, but yes, it's a UI UX design, which is, again, can be, you know, where AI does play a role. So I think from time to time, the use cases will change, but the fundamental principles on which something is okay or can cause consumer harm, I think those principles remain by and large quite robust.
Can I
Great.
make a quick point on this? Great
Course.
point that you made. And I think one critical component that as marketers we all need to know is that, see, technology now is no longer a part of the strategy, it is the strategy. And with that happening, I think it's extremely critical for all of us, and not just marketers, in general, people who are working, to ensure that it is used in the right way for the greater good of everybody, right? And brands also have to do that. Now, while we spoke about deep fakes, etc., in my personal opinion, I don't think so it's going to get you far, because you might just probably get immediate responses and probably some new customers or likes or whatever. But if it's not done in the right way, which by the way never gets done in the right way, and that's why it's called a deep fake, right? Will probably at a later period of time will result in losses. And hence it's extremely critical to ensure that you're using technology in the right way for the greater good, and brands will benefit out of it. It might take a little longer, but that's the right approach, and probably it's also called the traditional approach towards utilizing it.
Thanks, Jaydeep. And actually, I was coming to you. That was a good segue. And I wanted to ask you for guidelines, what marketers should follow while using in a way, half of the answer you have already given, but if you would like to add to.
No, so I think the other half of the answer could be that, see, like I said, technology is for all of us to utilize, make lives easier for us. It typically solves for three components, right? Volume, variety, and velocity. And technology is enabling us to kind of reach out to a larger volume of personas and people and audiences. There's so much of content, so we need to reach out to the people faster, therefore the velocity. And we can play with so much of variations of content, right? I want to reach out to an individual vis-a-vis another individual with different narratives, different messages. Tech can help you do that. AI can help you do that. And yeah, well, let's do it. And I mean, that's where we are utilizing it for greater good. But remember, whatever technology we're using, whether it's AI, whether it's now Gen AI, or anything else, right? it's essential to make sure that there is some humanization component put in place, right? We have to have human interventions wherever necessary. You can't just leave it on the tech or AI and say, listen, we want to target a particular audiences with this demographics and please go ahead and do it. It might as well do your work, but then you might not know what hallucinations it has done and reach out with some messages that you probably, or your brand didn't want them to reach out with. So you want to have that human interventions wherever required. You definitely need to put, like you mentioned, guardrails. Guardrails are critical. You need to put certain guardrails depending on what your brand stands for, right? So based on the brand promise, the brand guardrails need to be put in place. And you need to kind of make sure that within those guardrails, you have the free play that you allow the technology to utilize. And it doesn't go beyond those diameters. So these are some important components that one can utilize.
Great. Thanks, Jaydeep. And let me go back to Govind.
May I just
Sure.
add one point over there? I think the other thing that marketers must remember is that what AI is throwing up today is actually based on past data or past information, right? And it's not necessary that everything we did in the past was really great. I mean, a lot of things were, but they weren't. So for example, biases. Okay, whether they are gender bias, race biases, etc. So when you start looking, and I'm sure all of you faced it. I know when I was experimenting with, Mid-Journey, I certainly found it that if I wanted Indian-looking people, I mean, it only gave me some very typical kind of a look. Okay, or if I said a young woman, I mean, it only showed me, let's say, very, very slender and slim women. But not all young women look like that. So I think it's also for us to be very cognizant in terms of as we talk of a more inclusive world, let's remember that our past world was not as inclusive. And therefore, as brands, if we want to stand for something that is progressive, something that is more future-facing, and something that is more aspirational for audiences of today, let's recognize that AI may have some of those biases. And that's why I think, as JD rightly said, I mean, that human intervention for us to understand what we want. And therefore, I think this whole skill of prompt engineering and what are you asking, and of course it will improve. I mean, we are still in the early days in terms of, it's mind blowing already, but I'm sure what will come through will be even greater and will hopefully address some of these challenges. But I think in that sense, let's not forget real intelligence and empathy. And not abdicate, in a sense, our jobs to AI. But it can be a very powerful tool, but I don't think we can abandon our own sense of what is right, wrong, intuition about the markets, etc. when we are using AI.
Thanks, Manisha. And that brings us to, of course, I think very well said that, we need to have guardrails so that the personalization doesn't become manipulation, right? That's where it needs to be stopped. And that brings us to the last section of this panel discussion, which is about human element in AI-driven marketing, which is key because there are lots of biases, as you said. It works on, or it is trained on the past data. So let me come to you, Monil, with my first question in this section. In what ways you believe AI enhances creativity, and does it have any potential to diminish human creativity, or what are the kind of enhancements overall creativity can get out of AI-driven technologies?
No, I think it's a very good question. See, creativity is not a singular piece. How do we define creativity? If I were to look at it, right, there was a study done about 20 years ago on types of creativity. As far as I remember it vaguely, that person kind of divided, if you do a 2x2 matrix and try to visualize this, there is cognitive on the top quadrant, there is emotional on the top right quadrant, there is spontaneous in the bottom quadrant, and there is deliberate on the middle quadrant. So there is cognitive and deliberate, which requires a lot of the top left corners of yours, not mine, but yours, requires a lot of thinking and deep learning. The cognitive and spontaneous is the relationship and experience that comes into play. That's another creativity type. The other is it is cognitive and emotional and spontaneous is the aha moment where you get. So if I were to kind of summarize this, right, I don't want to extend this because of interest of time, but AI is good in certain types of creativity, the top left and the bottom right, right, where it excels and gives you deep insights. So for example, pharmaceutical products, pharmaceutical research and discoveries, drug delivery, new ideas in physics, new ideas in art sciences could be easily be gathered through use of AI. Now, when it comes to human creativity, I think the experience is where AI is lacking. The physical experience of that aha moment, the Archimedes moment or Newton's falling of apple, right? That is something that AI will not experience immediately, at least until we get to a level of AGI. So
I would like to.
So that's where I believe creativity will be enhanced if we couple the human aspect of it, one. Secondly, when it comes to creativity itself, there are two important areas. One is the novelty factor, which I think Shubhendra already highlighted it. The other is the usefulness factors. So when it comes to marketing, when you do content writing, for example, a lot of us might be doing content writing, right? If I would take an example, if you're a story writer or if you're a copywriter, AI would be good in the novelty factor. But how do you bring the usefulness and humanize that into a usefulness factor? That is something that only a human can do, at least at this point of time, right? No, none of the AIs would be able to bring that experience part of creativity inside unless that human can connect, a human to human connection is built. That is where I feel the difference of enhancing the human creativity comes into play. The other part is from, whether it lacks. Yeah, I mean, I would not use the word for the lack of good word. A bad creator will always remain a bad creator, no matter how much of AI you use, right? So from a lack of perspective, you would see a similar output. If you do use multiple AIs in a, let's say you create music, and at certain point of time, you would find similar tones in music, which lacks human empathy, human emotions, and that's where you feel, no, I don't enjoy it. And that's where artists would possibly face slack in terms of, no, it's not up to the mark, right? You've used AI, but not really used it to the level that I wanted from a listener's perspective. And that's where I feel AI might cripple creativity if we kind of depend on it too much. So that's my 2 cents on it.
And Govind, you wanted to add?
Yeah, I wanted to add something. So, how many of us have seen the movie Age of Ultron, Avengers? Most of us might have seen, right? Where we, saw that Ultron killed Jarvis. Again, AI software, right? Similarly, what it tells us is that if things are done in a positive manner, it can benefit us well. If it is done in negative manner, it will not benefit us, at all. Now, in terms of creative learning, whether it goes positive or it goes negative, there are two particular movie names I would like to highlight. One is AI, Steven Spielberg, back in 2001, where there was this character, David, son, who was not born but produced as an AI, kid. So that's a positive side of story. How good AI can become better and better and can be integrated in our day-to-day life. Whether as a marketeer, whether as a consumer, how good side of AI can be there. Another movie of Brian Wilms in 2006 called Idiocracy. Same example of machine learning and AI. And in that movie, it shows that, a distant future, 200, 300 years from now, when we have become so much reliant on AI technology to generate content on our behalf, to generate ideas on our behalf, then we tend to ignore, the side where we become more creative as a human being. In a recent study done at Harvard by BCG, it shows that if a person, and this study was done for about a year or so, if a person constantly rely on AI application for content generation, their new divergent skill set and ideas diminish by as high as 40%. So we have both sides of stories where, it can lead us in a good manner as well, and it can also lead into a diminishing skill set for a creative person. But I agree with the, panelist that human touch is not going to go away in a soon future. But the kind of rapid pace of change we are having, for an example, last 3-4 big revolution which I can recall, creating fire, creating wheel, it took many years, from a bullet cart to maybe a, helicopter or something, where the technology has taken a lot time. Next change, electricity, took about almost a decade to integrate in maybe hundreds of application. Then internet, only 2 decades. And now AI, it will take even shorter time, like Subhranshu said, every 5-6 months, things are going to get changed. Now, as a marketeer, that remains a challenge for us. And as a creative person within the team, or maybe at the size of agency, that again remains a challenge. So that is how both sides of coins are there.
No, I just one point here. I think that's a brilliant example, Govind. Everyone should see Idiocracy. I've seen it. It bombed at the box office back in 2006, but it gives a very good insight into what happens if we heavily depend on technology. So, and AI, of course, So, feel free to, just go ahead and binge watch it on Netflix. It's not on Netflix, but wherever it is.
Great, thanks, Govind. And that brings me to the last question. For last half an hour, we have been discussing capabilities that AI has. A couple of years, I tried to, size the market across 12 different, 13 different categories of platforms and tools that were enabling with AI technologies different stacks of marketing, right? It was very difficult and nothing was growing at less than 3 digits. But having said that, whatever capabilities or endless capabilities artificial intelligence has, as marketeers, we do understand that it has limitations in terms of understanding the complex human emotions and nuances. So what should we do? And you could all take 30 seconds each and summarize what should we do as marketeers to ensure that there is that human element whenever we using artificial intelligence for different tasks that we do as part of our day-to-day life in marketing. Maybe we can start with you, Manisha.
Yeah, sure. So I think, just carrying on from the point that was being discussed into what is being asked now, my own sense is that the average level of creativity will probably go up because of AI, but the top level of creativity, I think, will come from human beings. And if that doesn't come, AI itself, if it's not being now feeding on the best of the best outputs from human beings, will also probably then, it's not going to stagnate because it will constantly, rechurn, but will not become as rich or enriched as humans can do it. So I think the enrichment between AI and human beings, in a sense, is mutual. And therefore, I think, again, in our efforts and endeavors, I'll probably repeat what I said earlier, is to not abdicate everything to AI. As you're saying, so whether it's writing, whether it's marketing strategy, whether it is, creating a brief or whatever, jobs you're doing in marketing, I think you can use AI to help you, but I don't think you can kind of leave it all to AI, at least not immediately.
Great, Govind.
I agree with Manisha. Human beings are important to the process of marketing because of the sheer creativity what it brings. And marketing is all about doing new things, coming out with new ideas, and those kind of generation I don't see in at least 4 or 5 years down the line. It's going to replace that kind of intervention which we as an individual have. Currently, it is so much limited, whether we talk about Netflix, whether we talk about, any kind of software available in the market, Mid-Journey or Gemini or you name it. You feed any kind of, input and they come out with few suggestions. Those are also limited suggestions. So the replacement of humans are not going to happen anytime soon. And maybe the kind of way it gets evolved in a decade down the line, 2 decades down the line, then there can be a different possibilities, because with respect to AI, we even haven't scratched the surface yet. There are endless possibilities. So right now, I don't know what way it is going to go, but at least for this current ongoing next 5 years, I don't see that AI is going to replenish the human side of creativity here.
So I think, like you rightly mentioned, the possibilities are endless, and AI or any technology can become as good as you want it to be, right? It depends on your prompts, and your prompts will help it make even better. Uh, as a marketer, we all get inspired by consumption, and when I say consumption, consumption of products, some products or solutions. Somebody else is consuming our products, solutions, and we feel great. Somebody else is consuming our brands, we feel great about it. But I think as a marketer, at least I also get inspired by one more thing, which is creation, the content creation. And the reason for that is because with technologies like AI, and like I mentioned, and all the panelists also mentioned earlier, we have that possibility of individualizing stuff, right? If storytelling, which is extremely critical for brands to survive and build, right, stronger brands for the future, it needs to marry the component of individuality. Everybody likes listening in cohorts, but at the end of the day, we are all individuals. We have our own unique way of understanding, viewing things, right? So if technology can really unite individuality as well as technology together, the storytelling together, I think we will have a winning combination, and that's what AI and anything can do.
Yeah, I mean, if I were to just summarize this in very simply, use it as a tool to enhance and accelerate your productivity and creativity, but do not use it as a crutch, right? Unless we have maybe 10 years, 20 years down the line, we may have neural links implanted in our brains. We ourselves will become androids. Until then, I think let's use it as a tool. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Monil. And thank you, everyone. That brings us to the conclusion of the panel. I would just like to add one comment. You know, it's technology is enabler, whether artificial intelligence or anything else. It helps us achieve certain outcomes. And one thing that we must ensure is that we always keep the command on the outcomes that we want to achieve, right? And as long as we do that, we can use the technology to achieve those outcomes. And I was talking to Jaydeep. He didn't use my analogy, but let me still say that here, right? It's a technology which has not evolved, just like those old Mahindra Jeeps, if anybody has driven, those used to have mechanical engineering steerings. So you will have to keep it on course. Very quickly you have to move the steering. And now we drive power steering cars, so we don't have to do all that. I think with the standards, regulations, everything evolving in the ecosystem, and also technology provider themselves keeping those guardrails, it will become better and better. And with that hope, I would like to conclude today's panel discussion and thank all the panelists. Wonderful insight. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everyone.